Now, y'all know here on Roland Martin Unfiltered, we do something called the deconstruction of different things. We have in the past deconstructed Kanye West, his nutty news conference that took place in the Oval Office. We have deconstructed the nuttiness of Candace Owens and so many others. And so this morning I saw a video that took place yesterday from a show on Fox Sports, their cable network. And it was the show that has Marcellus Wiley and Jason Whitlock and Jim Jackson. Jackson, former NBA star, and Marcellus Wiley, former NFL star, and Jason Whitlock, who never played professional ball. So we were watching this, and they were talking about this whole issue between Colin Kaepernick, Jay-Z, Eric Reed, and then Marcellus, who I really like. We've had Marcellus on the show. I think Marcellus is a very smart guy, graduated from an Ivy League school. But I think sometimes you can be so smart you're dumb when you come to a certain form of analysis. And so I was watching this video and was deeply disturbed by what I was hearing out of the mouth of Marcellus Wiley. So what we're going to do is we're going to play for you the segment. And y'all know how we do the deconstruction. We play the video, then I say stop, then I deconstruct, then we play some more, and then we deconstruct. So, class is in session. You can begin.
One, Jay-Z told you what he thinks of Kaepernick truly through his actions. He didn't go to Kaepernick to say, can I? Should I? He just did it. You know why? As he said, we're beyond kneeling.
Was this the beginning?
You can keep kneeling. I'm going to take this baton from you as you're kneeling and now translate this into the two things that are most important in this whole conversation, which is the money and the power that can give the resources back to those who are underprivileged, underserved, and voiceless. And I think that's been lost right now because of Kaepernick and the gestures that him and Eric Reed and Nessa are all following. Here's the thing. Jay-Z is smart. You don't become Marcy Projects to billionaire and not be smart and have your spidey sense and can read this. And Jay-Z is guilty of giving Kaepernick a pass the same way I was guilty of giving him a pass. I was conflicted. From day one, I was against him kneeling. Because I said, get up and get those resources, because where we're from, your kneeling at kickoff has nothing to do with our situation unless you translate that, materialize it, and monetize it.
Stop right there. Now, first and foremost, Marcellus says that he was against Colin Kaepernick initially kneeling because he said, get up and get the resources. If anyone who actually followed any of this, the NFL's commitment to resources to fight social justice did not happen until after this thing blew up. It's not like the NFL said before a protest, hey, we're going to commit ourselves to spend upwards of $100 million fighting social justice. That was the response to the protest. It's a little hard, Marcellus, for you to now say you were against the protest by Colin Kaepernick because you were saying go get those resources to help the community when the resources were not offered up prior to the protest. Press play.
Waited long enough and finally said,
Lanny,
step past this dude to get this right. This is an identity issue. You know why the identity of this movement has been lost? You know why the identity has been lost in this platform of kneeling, and what does it really mean? Because the identity of those who are leading it has always been in question. Let's keep it 1,000 up here, because my past
It's hot.
my past has expired for this. The past has expired. I've been going back and forth with this from day one at ESPN. Let's go. Kaepernick comes from a situation where he's never felt the full weight of these injustices. This is a mixed race guy who was raised by a white family from Wisconsin to Central California. Respect. That does not disqualify you.
Stop. Now, he said the identity. He then says that Colin Kaepernick was raised by he's mixed race and raised by a white couple. He says Wisconsin. Do y'all know where Colin Kaepernick was born? Milwaukee. Do y'all know the history of Milwaukee and its police department with police brutality? Do you understand the poverty rates that exist in Milwaukee? It is arguably the poorest city in America. Certain states, certain reports have shown that per capita, it is in the top 3 of the poorest in the country. So what you hear Marcellus say, and I need to unpack this, what he's saying is, well, you really can't trust Colin Kaepernick to be authentic about these issues because he is not a full African American. How can you somehow be someone to speak to these issues and you are not a full African American? Listen carefully. What you're hearing is a purity test, a black purity test. Continue.
But when you make missteps and miscalculations, it comes back into play. And he never spoke on this when Black Lives Matters movement was at its height. Think about it, 2013, 2014, Ferguson, when Jay-Z is bailing prisoners out and doing protesters out and taking pictures and supporting Trayvon Martin and that family. What was Kaepernick? You know where he was? Taking his shirt off, bruh. I knew Kaepernick back then. He was never talking about this. He meets Nessa 2015, all of a sudden 2016, he gets benched. Flip-flop. Not mad, that still doesn't disqualify you. But Nessa comes into play now. And we all know Nessa. Respect to her and her ethnicity, but it's not black. Okay? So now we got two leaders who don't...
So Marcellus then lays out who's not black. Then what he says is, oh, no, you didn't care about these issues. You didn't care about them until your girlfriend came along. Well, first of all, Marcellus, do your homework. Colin Kaepernick has stated that it was the shooting of a black man in San Francisco in 2015 that touched him deeply and caused him to rethink these very issues. Now, see, it's very interesting to listen to Marcellus talk about Colin Kaepernick and somebody who hasn't experienced the full weight of these issues. Later in this interview, you're going to hear Marcellus Wiley talk about him growing up in Harlem and experiencing these things and what happened. Oh, that's very curious, Marcellus. Because, see, Marcellus Wiley, y'all, was drafted in the NFL in April of 1997. He spent 10 years in the NFL. Do y'all know what happened on August 9th, 1997 in Marcellus Wiley's New York? That's when Abner Louima was brutally beaten and sodomized by NYPD police officers. Can y'all please show me the evidence of Marcellus Wiley saying a word? Can you show me the evidence of Marcellus Wiley standing with the activists in 1997 who took to the streets to protest Abner Louima being beaten and destroyed by the cops? Oh, but let's fast forward 2 years. February 4th, 1999. Do y'all remember Amadou Diallo? A black immigrant who was shot 41 times by NYPD. I recall they said he was reaching for a gun when it actually was his wallet. I'm sorry. If the evidence is there, please, by all means, show me where Marcellus Wiley used his platform to stand up and call for justice for the cops in his beloved New York City who shot and killed Amadou Diallo in 1999. By all means, advance to November 25th, 2006, the final year, in fact, the final 2 months of Marcellus Wiley's career, when Sean Bell was gunned down, shot 50 times by numerous NYPD officers. Your career was at its end, Marcellus. You had nothing to lose. You could have stood up and used your voice to call out those NYPD officers. Now, again, if the evidence is there, if the data is there where you actually did these things, by all means, put it up or shut it up. So you're questioning Colin Kaepernick because he's biracial? Because he chose to take a knee? I do recall another young brother who is biracial, who spoke about the injustices in our society. Do y'all recall this moment happening at the BET Awards?
Before we get into it, I just want to say, I brought my parents out tonight. I just want to thank them for being here, for teaching me to focus on comprehension over career, that they make sure I learn what the schools were afraid.
Leave it right there. Now go back to the frame. I see a white woman and a black man. Jesse Williams, the actor on Grey's Anatomy, honored at the BET Awards for his fight for social justice. Jesse Williams is a biracial man. Jesse Williams wasn't raised in the hood, Marcellus. So are we now saying that if you are biracial, you can't speak to any of these issues? Are we saying that somehow that if you have not experienced the full weight of police brutality and the full weight of injustice and the full weight of police officers, then somehow you cannot speak to these issues? Okay, Marcellus, I'm a black man who grew up in Clinton Park in Houston, Texas. Mama's black, daddy's black. Did I experience the full weight of police brutality? No. I've never been in the back seat of a police car except the one that was actually at the mall when they had some sign up and I sat in the back. I've never been in a situation. I have never been thrown against a car. I've never been held under duress. I've never had handcuffs on me. But there's no way in hell you can tell me I can't speak to these issues as if it never existed in my community. How can you sit there on a national platform and establish a purity test as to who can speak to the issues affecting our society? How can you do that? Anybody who understands American history knows full well it is filled with individuals who are not black, but who have stood up for various issues. We understand there were white abolitionists. We understand that there were preachers during the civil rights movement there were politicians who were black and who were Jewish and who were white and who were Episcopal and Pentecostal, who LBJ called on to put pressure on Republicans and Southern Democrats to support a 64 Civil Rights Act and a 65 Voting Rights Act and a 68 Fair Housing Act. Are we somehow to suggest that their work didn't mean anything? Oh, please, by all means, go read Howard Zinn's book, who was one of the 2 adult supervisors who helped SNCC. It was Ella Baker and Howard Zinn. Zinn. Look it up if you need to. Who wrote a book on these new abolitionists who were within SNCC. He was a white man. So are we somehow saying he didn't matter? Are we somehow saying that James Reed, who was beaten in Selma, didn't matter? Are we saying Viola Liuzzo, a white woman from Michigan, who could have stayed and had a home with her family, but who traveled down to Alabama to help sign black folks to register to vote, whose head was blown off on the side of the road, returning from Montgomery back to Selma on the day that the King gave that speech on the steps of the Montgomery Capitol? Are we somehow supposed to say they don't matter? Or what they do? So what's up with this black purity test? And then the question, his girlfriend? To somehow say, oh, he got with Nessa, and all of a sudden, he began to change. Well, Marcellus, praise the Lord, because see, I can show you, in fact, since you want to go there, let me give you some history, Marcellus. And again, I like you, Marcellus. I think you're a smart guy. I think you got way more sense than Jason Whitlock. But let me tell you what Andrew Young told me, since you want to question Colin Kaepernick's girlfriend for the impact she had on Colin Kaepernick. Andrew Young told me this story, and I'll be happy to give you the videotape. Andrew Young said they were in New York. They had moved into a new apartment. He had a job as producing in television. They had gotten a new place and curtains and everything. And all of a sudden, a phone call came in. We need you down south. And they were watching television. And they were looking at all the injustices happening down south. And Andrew Young's wife said, it's time for us to go. Andrew Young said, go where? She said, it's time for us to go back home. So you got to understand, Marcellus, Andrew Young was from New Orleans. He experienced the depths of Jim Crow segregation. Andrew Young said, wait a minute, baby, hold up. We just got here. We got us a new apartment. Baby got you some new drapes. Everything is good. She says, well, you can stay here, but I'm going. See, Marcellus, Andrew Young, Ambassador Andrew Young, Mayor Andrew Young, Congressman Andrew Young, philanthropist Andrew Young, told me that the reason they were able to withstand Jim Crow, it was because the black women who they were married to would not allow them to quit the movement. Andrew Young said out of his own mouth, Marcellus, that it was the women who put the pressure and say, y'all are going to stay with it and you're going to keep fighting. So you don't sit here and criticize Colin Kaepernick's girlfriend when the history shows it was women who stood behind their men and say, baby, you stand up for what's right. So I won't criticize a woman for encouraging him and loving him and supporting him. But you present that somehow as a sign of weakness. Press play.
Even feel the weight of the consequences. So guess what you are allowed to do right now?
Preach.
Have convenience. Ain't no cosmetics here, bro. When I'm in Compton, when I'm in South Central and Harlem, that's my childhood to manhood, 0 to 22 years old. Those three places. I know what it feels like. When you're talking to Jay-Z, who's been through Marcy Projects, Brooklyn, and all his successes, he's seen this. We both said, go, Kaepernick, go. And let the cause blindly support the man. But the character is now coming to question. And then now Eric Reed is taking it and giving them cover. Eric Reed is taking Kenny Stills, another guy. Respect, guys. Another mixed race individual who's not felt the full weight of this. So when you want to take this move,
see, now we back. See, y'all see what's going on. Another mixed race individual who's not felt the full force of this. Fine, Marcellus, show me the evidence of you using your platform to call out these issues. Show me the evidence of you standing up and speaking against police brutality and calling out injustices. Please show me the evidence as opposed to you sitting here pontificating on television saying what they are actually doing. Press play.
movement. And I hate to play the race card against my own race. Usually you play the race card against the other races, right? But when I have to see these missteps and these issues all manifest, I get back to the identity of those who are leading it, which has always been in question. And now Jay-Z has answered that question.
Come back.
Let somebody who...
Now, first of all, the identity has never been in question. We've known who Colin Kaepernick is. We know that Nessa, her folks, are from Egypt, and she's also Muslim. I'm sorry, but are you trying to somehow suggest that they can't be aware of these issues and speak to these issues? I do know of somebody who was with a white mama and a Kenyan daddy who actually pushed a bill that dealt with police accountability in Chicago. Are we trying to say that the things that President Barack Obama did and things that State Senator Barack Obama did and U.S. Senator Barack Obama did are called into question because, oh, he's not fully black? Are we trying to say that there are identity issues? Is that what we really are trying to say? So are we trying to say that Jay-Z is blacker because Jay-Z grew up in the projects and he saw these things? So is that what we're really trying to do here? Are we somehow trying to minimize what Colin Kaepernick was speaking about when he has articulated exactly why he did it? Press play.
Really knows what this is about, handle this. We can't have a conversation on this. Colin is not versed well enough in this subject. He never lived it, so therefore you have to study it. He's not well informed enough where these PhDs who are on ground level say, Colin, we've tried to meet with you. He does his own thing. He goes to the beat of Nessa's drum. Respect, brother. But then Jay-Z is sitting there saying, I want to handle this, man. And stop with this whole divide and conquer. This whole, oh, these two brothers going at it. Y'all some simple-minded fools.
Come back.
Our black...
Well, what the hell are you? You literally are describing yourself because that's exactly what you're doing with the commentary. You're literally trashing Colin Kaepernick and his girlfriend. You're basically saying that he's a simpleton and somehow he can't think for himself. You literally just say on national television he doesn't have the intellectual capacity to understand the depths of these issues when Colin Kaepernick has actually been involved with Know Your Rights camps all across the country. Colin, you said he beats to his, he going to his old drum. Yeah, he does. He's actually been putting in the work, putting his money where his mouth is. Now, I've also been critical because I think Colin Kaepernick should be speaking out more. I believe that he should be doing interviews, should be articulating exactly where we are, but that's simply not his style. Do you know who also styled it up, that also the same way? Dr. James Lawson, the man behind the Nashville movement, the man who called King to come to Memphis. When I interviewed him, see, Marcellus, I'm not just somebody sitting on television talking about these issues. I'm somebody who's talked to the very people who have been involved in these things. So maybe you right now are operating outside of your depths, like you criticizing Colin Kaepernick. James Lawson said it wasn't my role to be on the front row. My job was in the back of the church. He said, because somebody got to be the one behind the scenes. But see, when you try to minimize what somebody is doing, by taking shots at his girlfriend, it really speaks to you and your actual view. Press play.
Experience is not monolithic, brother. So Jay-Z can do his way, and Colin, you can do it your way. But brother, we have seen your way, and we don't know what your leadership looks like because you're voiceless. You are voiceless in your own message, just like the people who are powerless are voiceless in our society. So now Jay-Z is saying, I'm going to translate this, since I know what it feels like if this didn't work right for me. So now you look at this entire situation and you have to address the characters of the individuals because of what is happening in front of us. These guys have misled. And I gave him a pass just like you. I knew Colin when he was all the way up. And he wasn't thinking about this. And then when it first happened, I said, oh, my homeboys told me, and people in the organization, he's pouting. You remember day one, he was just sitting there? He wasn't kneeling. And then they told him, kneel at least in respect. And he did that.
Come back.
Then all of a sudden...
See right there. See, what I really can't stand is when you present an argument and then you really have no facts to actually back it up. He was pouting. No, he actually was sitting. And it was a special forces member of the military, Nate Boyer, who went to him and said, sitting is actually disrespectful. You should take a knee. What ended up happening? Do y'all recall it was Nate who stood behind Colin Kaepernick as he took a knee? See, Marcellus is wrong. Colin Kaepernick was engaged in a quiet protest. It was an NFL reporter who actually saw him in successive games sitting on the bench and went to him and asked him, "Why are you sitting?" Then Colin Kaepernick said exactly why he was sitting. He wasn't pouting. We now know why he was actually doing it. So Marcellus, why are you presenting a factually incorrect understanding of what Colin Kaepernick was doing? Roll it.
The boat got in the water, and that's where we've been for 3 years. One more thing, and I ain't done. And please add my name to this list of sellouts that goes like this: Jay-Z, Big Boy, Travis Scott, Malcolm Jenkins. Put my name on that list if you want to, because you know what this is? This cause has turned into a validation and a credit for Colin Kaepernick and Nessa's blackness. And let me tell you, you had your past, and your past has now expired. Jay-Z, do you, as you always handle it, stay above the fray and just make this about action.
Just make this about action? Well, what has Colin Kaepernick been doing while you have only been talking? Also, Nate Boyer spoke about this very issue in terms of what happened. This was on HBO Real Sports. Here, we go to my iPad.
We sort of came to a middle ground where he would take a knee alongside his teammates. Soldiers take a knee in front of a fallen brother's grave, to show respect. When we're on a patrol, and we go into a security halt, we take a knee and we pull security.
Was he receptive?
Very receptive. He said, "I think that would be really powerful." And he asked me to do it with him, and I said, "Look, I'll stand next to you. I got to stand though. I got to stand with my hand on my heart. That's just what I do and where I'm from."
You got called a lot of names.
I got called a lot of things from both sides. I was told I was a disgrace to the Green Beret. That hurts, it really does. But then I also had a lot of people in the military say, "I think you're onto something."
What you just heard completely is the counter to what Marcellus actually said. Then he talked about Jay-Z's part. See, here's the real issue that happened with Jay-Z in the NFL that really was a problem here. And nobody wants to admit this. In the announcement they made, they laid out all the entertainment stuff. They talked about halftime show. They talked about soundtracks. They talked about live albums. What did you hear on the social justice side? All you heard was, we're going to do some stuff on the social justice side. What you heard was this clearly articulated entertainment plan that was well thought out. On the social justice piece, you didn't hear much. And that was the problem. See, there are a lot of people who I've talked to who have no issue with Jay-Z doing what he's doing. But see, the problem is, don't make it an announcement about entertainment and social justice when the whole announcement is about entertainment and ain't no social justice. Did y'all hear anything where they articulate exactly what they're going to be doing on social justice? Did any of y'all hear anything? Did y'all hear anything?
Just a little small.
I don't recall hearing anything substantive.
No.
See, this is what happened. So the problem is really your rollout. The problem is how Rock Nation and Jay-Z, how y'all rolled it out. That's why you're getting criticized, because you had no substance behind it. Entertainment and no substance. But to sit here and demean Colin Kaepernick and call him essentially a lackey, and by saying him and his girlfriend are earning their black card, Colin Kaepernick is a black man. He's biracial. So are we now to call the black card of Jesse Williams? Are we now to question the black card of Halle Berry? Are we now to question the black card of any brother or sister who's biracial? Are we really going to play that game, Marcellus? Because see, if we're going to play that game, we can play another game. We can play the game of a whole bunch of authentic Negroes who don't say a damn thing. If we really want to play that game, let's discuss authentic black people who don't speak up. If we really want to play that game, let's talk about authentic black people who are not doing stuff in their communities. To suggest that Colin Kaepernick has done nothing is a blatant lie. And to say it on television is dead wrong. Marcellus, you were absolutely wrong. As you said, playing the race card. What the hell was that? It was shameful. It was despicable. And it was pathetic television. And yeah, you should apologize for it. Because see, this is not about blackness and who's blacker. What this is about is a man who said he saw the injustice of a shooting in San Francisco. And you know what, Marcellus? Jenna 6 happened in 2006 when you were playing in the NFL. Did you say anything about that? See, I don't question like you did. Where was he with Black Lives Matter? Everybody don't arrive at the destination at the same time, Marcellus. There are some people who talk about it early. There are other people who actually bring it up later. See, I'm not concerned when you came to the conclusion to fight social justice. I'm happy when somebody arrived at that conclusion. And here's what I do know, Marcellus Wiley, that a 26-year-old Colin Kaepernick had the audacity and the unmitigated gall to take a seat and to take a knee because he felt that there was a cause bigger. When you were 26 in the NFL, what did you do? Being so authentically black, being somebody who has felt the weight of all of this, being somebody who was from Harlem. What did you do when you had the opportunity to use your NFL platform to raise the issue? The silence because you did nothing. You only focused on football. So I appreciate a Colin Kaepernick. I appreciate a Kenny Stills. I appreciate an Eric Reed and numerous others. Oh, by the way, when you talked about these things don't matter and all things along those lines, and you know you're agreeing with Jay-Z, it's time to stop protesting. Since I'm a reader, let me help you out. You need to get this book. Jason Whitlock, you can get it too. This book, y'all, is called Operation Breadbasket, an untold story of civil rights in Chicago, 1966 to 1971, by Martin L. Depp. And do you know what Martin says in this book, Marcellus? He says there were numerous times when they made announcements against companies who they were protesting, and then the announcement called off the protest, and then they discovered that the company reneged on what they agreed to, and they had to go back to the picket lines. He says in here numerous times when they had negotiated to add black produced products to the book to the shelves, when they negotiated for the stores to bank with black banks, when they agreed to hire black managers, companies reneged. So guess what they did? They went back to protesting. So when Jay-Z said, kneeling is time to end kneeling and now it's time to do the work, no. You keep the pressure up until they show sustained action. What the NFL is just like High-Low Foods and just like these other companies in here who wanted the protest to end, what they'll do is they'll come to an agreement to tamp everything down and go back to business as usual. But Dr. King and Operation Breadbasket, taken over by Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., led by him in Chicago, but they understood. And Martin says it in this book, Marcellus, the biggest mistake that they made was they didn't have adequate follow-up to the covenants signed with these companies. Mm-hmm. This is history. And so for the people who say keep protesting, that's meant to keep the pressure on. That's meant to keep the attention on. And maybe 5 years from now, Marcellus, and we look back and we see sustained leadership from the NFL, then we can say the protest can end because it was job well done. But you might want to read a little history, Marcellus, because here's the piece. I didn't play football, but I damn sure know a whole lot about black liberation. And your questioning the blackness of Colin Kaepernick is a shameful display on television, and it was wrong. Going to a break. We'll be back on Roland Martin Unfiltered in just a moment. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. By going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, you can make this possible. So yesterday, here in Roland Martin Unfiltered, I did a deconstruction of some recent comments by Marcellus Wiley on Fox Sports with regards to Colin Kaepernick and Jay-Z and Colin's girlfriend Nessa and Eric Reed and Kenny Stills, all surrounding protests in the NFL and all sorts of stuff along those lines. And so the reason so people said, dang, man, you went in hard, because I was greatly bothered by what Marcellus had to say when he was talking about the identity of the individuals who were involved. And in essence, there was this whole notion that, well, Jay-Z is really blacker than Colin Kaepernick, because Colin Kaepernick is biracial and raised by white parents and was in Wisconsin, moved to Central California, as opposed to Jay-Z growing up in the projects there in New York. So for some of y'all who missed it, here are some of the comments of Marcellus Wiley, and then I'm going to come back with my comment.
This is an identity issue. You know why the identity of this movement has been lost? You know why the identity has been lost in this platform of kneeling, and what does it really mean? Because the identity of those who are leading it has always been in question. Let's keep it 1,000 up here, because my past is hot. My past has expired for this. The past has expired. I've been going back and forth with this from day one at ESPN. Let's go. Kaepernick comes from a situation where he's never felt the full weight of these injustices. This is a mixed race guy who was raised by a white family from Wisconsin to Central California. Respect. That does not disqualify you from talking for us. But when you make missteps and miscalculations, it comes back into play. And he never spoke on this when Black Lives Matters movement was at its height. Think about it, 2013, 2014, Ferguson, where Jay-Z is bailing prisoners out and doing protesters out and taking pictures and supporting Trayvon Martin and that family. What was Kaepernick? You know who he was? Taking his shirt off, bruh. I knew Kaepernick back then. He was never talking about this. He meets Nessa 2015, all of a sudden 2016 he gets benched. Flip-flop. Not mad, that still doesn't disqualify you. But Nessa comes into play now. And we all know Nessa. Respect to her and her ethnicity, but it's not black. Okay? So now we got two leaders who don't even feel the weight of the consequences. So guess what you are allowed to do right now?
Preach.
Have convenience. Ain't no cosmetics here, bro. When I'm in Compton, when I'm in South Central and Harlem, that's my childhood to manhood, 0 to 22 years old. Those three places, I know what it feels like. When you're talking to Jay-Z, who's been through Marcy Projects, Brooklyn, and all his successes, he's seen this. We both said, go Kaepernick, go. And let the cause blindly support the man. But the character is now coming to question. And then now Eric Reed is taking it and giving them cover. Eric Reed is taking Kenny Stills, another guy. Respect, guys. Another mixed race individual who's not felt the full weight of this. So when you want to take this movement, and I hate to play the race card against my own race. Usually you play the race card against the other races, right? But when I have to see these missteps and these issues all manifest, I get back to the identity of those who are leading it, which has always been in question. And now Jay-Z has answered that question. Let somebody who really knows what this is about handle this.
So here's what's interesting with that particular commentary, and so allow me to have part two of deconstruction. First and foremost, Marcellus responded to that commentary by saying that you got it wrong. I grew up in Compton. I didn't grow up in Harlem. Well, actually, if you actually heard that comment, he said from 0 to 22, his life was Compton, South Central, and Harlem. So that's why I included Harlem in that. And so, yes, Marcellus, you grew up in Compton, but you invoked Harlem, which is why I brought up the cases that took place in New York, which you were very quiet about when you played in the NFL. But see, if you listened closely to what Marcellus said there, he was saying that this whole notion that Jay-Z can speak to these issues more so than Colin Kaepernick can because of how Jay-Z grew up. Also in the commentary, he talked about Jay-Z growing up in a public housing complex there in New York City and what he experienced and what he went through. Let me explain to you what that is. That's actually the code for you're blacker. See, in the 70s, what happened was if you were black and you were in school, they would say you talk white or you talk too proper, where you come from. Then in the 80s and 90s, it was, oh, you one of them suburban Negroes. You didn't grow up in the hood. Now in the 2000s, we've now evolved, now the whole issue of being biracial. So now we are criticizing folks and we're establishing this sort of these levels of blackness. What has happened in this country, unfortunately for black folks who have fallen victim to white supremacy, who don't even understand what they are saying, is that we have defined blackness as actually meaning coming from broken homes, impoverished, public housing, rats and roaches, single mama, daddy not home, broke, destitute, and we had to fight our way to school every day and the way back home, and we made it through. See, that's how we literally define this idea of what it means to be black. I was in the Cincinnati Music Festival, and that was a T-shirt, and it said, I'm mixed with hood and some other stuff, and somebody said, hey, you want that shirt? I'm like, hell no, because I ain't mixed with hood. Do you know why? Did I grow up in the Clinton Park neighborhood in Houston? Yes. The problem is, when you say the word hood, you left off the neighbor part. And so the word hood has now meant one thing in the minds of the person who you're talking to. See, the reason I brought these books out today is because we need to understand that there is no one black experience. This book here is called African Americans on Martha's Vineyard, From Enslavement to Presidential Visit by Thomas Dresser. Now, that's actually the black experience. Is that every black person? No, but it's also the black experience. Jill Nelson, Washington Post writer, actually wrote about this called Finding Martha's Vineyard, African Americans at Home on an Island. That's what this book is. This is also the black experience. I got a book right here. My man James Prince from Houston, Rap-A-Lot Records, The Art and Science of Respect. Oh, he talks about being one of the baddest thugs in Houston and talks about all the illegal stuff that he was involved in. Guess what? This is James Prince's experience. He talks about 5th Ward and 3rd Ward in Houston and how he was one of the baddest cats on the streets there. Yes, this is his experience. Is it the black experience? It's not. Here's a book called This African American Life by Hugh Price. Hugh Price, smart brother, eventually became the CEO of the National Urban League, talks about his African American life growing up in a household, family focused on education, him rising to major positions in corporate America, and then running the National Urban League. Very interesting book here called Negro Land, a memoir by Margot Jefferson. She talks about being black and bougie. She talks about being a black woman of privilege and how she was raised and how folks saw her differently than other black folks. Guess what? That's also the black experience. Let's talk about W.B. Du Bois. Oh, the seminal book on black Reconstruction. If you want to understand the black experience, you might want to read this particular book here. Oh, yeah, it's about 700 pages, but trust me, y'all can get through it. But he talks about, again, the period of Reconstruction after the Civil War and talks about black folks in the South, also in the North, and what Reconstruction meant for African Americans. If you really want to understand, talk about this whole idea, what's the black experience? There were a lot of black people who were critical of the civil rights movement because they said, oh, that's really the middle class Negroes who are really fighting this movement. So guess what? You had the editors of the book, The Eyes on the Prize Civil Rights Reader. Of course, Henry Hampton had an Academy Award nominated documentary on the civil rights movement, The Eyes on the Prize. Even during that movement, you had the back and forth where y'all don't really care about us folks who are sharecroppers versus y'all city folk. You heard all that sort of stuff going on, even though, guess what? Jim Crow was smacking city folk and sharecroppers. But y'all ever heard this book here called The True Story of America's First Black Dynasty, The Senator and the Socialite by Lawrence Otis Graham? Oh, yeah, it talks about one of the first black United States senators and how they had generational wealth, how they threw these exquisite parties in the North in Washington, D.C. Yeah, it was called The Senator and the Socialite. This also is the black experience. Of course, Allison Stewart had her book on First Class, The Legacy of Dunbar, America's first black public high school, talking about the black experience. Here's this great book that I also pulled from In Search of Black America, Discovering African American Dream. But this brother literally went all across the country, going to various black neighborhoods, trying to search for what exactly is black America. Then, of course, you had Isabel Wilkerson, who had her great book called The Warmth of Other Suns, won all kinds of awards, talking about the great migration of black folks from the South to the North. That's also the black experience. Then, of course, you have this great book called Black Families in White America by Andrew Billingsley, the 20th anniversary edition of a modern classic by a preeminent Afro-American sociologist. What does it mean to be a black family in white America? Then, of course, my man Gerald Horne, University of Houston, one of the top historians out there, he really explains this whole thing in the book called White Supremacy Confronted, U.S. Imperialism and Anti-Communism versus the Liberation of Southern Africa from Rhodes to Mandela. If you want to understand where a lot of this came from, right here, white supremacy. But why all this important? Why is my last book? Easy. Dr. King's book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community, where he literally talks about where we stand as black folks and talks about the various experiences. He talks about the issue of poverty, talks about the Negroes, of course, who didn't necessarily experience the same level of poverty, but they still experienced Jim Crow. What am I getting at? We are idiotic by continuing to allow individuals to play this game of defining the black experience as being one thing. There is no one black experience in America. Here we are this week celebrating or commemorating 400 years since the first 20-odd Africans arrived in Virginia in August of 1619. And in these 400 years, there have been numerous experiences of black folks. The reality is you can grow up in a black family, in a black neighborhood, and go to black schools, and go to black churches, and belong to black organizations, and when you become an adult, don't give a damn about black people. And you can be a biracial person who grew up in a white family, who lived across the country and the world, and you know what? You commit yourself to the issues that impact black people. See, who else is actually having these silly-ass conversations? What other groups are having these dumb-ass discussions as to who really is more authentic, who's really more hood, who's really more black? That's how stupid this stuff is. I remember when after I had pledged Alpha Phi Alpha, we were at a party and we had a brother who was from Sam Houston State. Walked up to me, he's like, oh yeah, oh y'all think y'all some, this is exactly what he said, because y'all know I don't use the word, oh y'all think y'all some smart niggas because y'all go to Texas A&M. But y'all, this is how we do it at this school. I had a brother who's at Prairie View who said the same thing, and they were talking all this trash, and I said, let me ask you a question. What's your chapter graduation rate? Then they got silent. I said, oh, y'all ass can't talk? I said, see, you want to challenge me because I went to Texas A&M and pledged Alpha. And you went to Sam Houston State, not a HBCU. Another brother went to Prairie View, that is a HBCU. So you want to question my blackness and question whether I'm real. I said, when our chapter in our hitcher only had one brother who did not graduate, and he's not authorized to come to any of our events. I said, so let me ask you a question. What does it mean to be an alpha? Does it matter if you go to a black school, or does it matter your ass actually graduate and do the things that an alpha man is required to do? He got real silent. I even had a sister when I went to the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and I joked with her about today because I jacked her ass up when she said it. We were standing by the photographer's table, and so she was a sister, and somebody introduced me to her. She said, oh, you the brother who didn't know who he was, who went to a white school. I said, oh, really? I said, where did you go? She said, oh, I went to Southern. I said, oh, so what you're saying is you need to go to an HBCU to figure out that your ass was black? I said, I grew up in a black neighborhood, black family, all that sort of black. I said, I knew I was black by the time I was 18. Now, when I talked about that one day, some folks who went to the HBCUs got real upset with me. But what they understand was, what she was trying to do was denigrate me because I didn't go to an HBCU. And I said, boo, you can go to an HBCU and still be clueless about black people. Just like you can go to a PWI and be clueless about black people. The black experience in America is wide, it is diverse, it is broad. And what we have to stop doing is playing these silly games of questioning somebody's blackness. And what we should be asking very simply, are you doing the work? Are you doing the work? And I disagree with the people who call Jay-Z a sellout. Just like I don't allow people on my show to call black Republicans sellout, or call them Uncle Toms, or call them Oreos, any of those names. Just like I don't let anybody come on this show and call somebody the N-word or call them a coon. Because see, that's offensive. But what we better understand is that we have a generation of black kids who are not growing up in hoods. A generation of black kids who are growing up biracial. So what are we saying to them by saying, well, you really don't have a black experience? That's not really a black experience. Well, what is it? Then when we use the phrases, you haven't felt the full oppression, the full weight of what it means to be black. Well, actually, how many people have? I mean, Marcellus went from Compton to the Ivy League school. I'm quite sure there were some black people who said, why you didn't go to HBCU? Oh, I heard that. I had a brother who challenged me when I was a senior in high school. I can't believe, see, that's my problem. All y'all Negroes are going to the white schools. I said, really? Where you going? I'm going to TSU, Texas Southern University, which is right across the street from my high school. And you know what I told him? I said, that's interesting. The Texas Southern University has a school of communications, and they literally are right across the street. And I was actually named the best student in my high school in my 4 years there, and they never actually recruited me. I was across the street. I said, so I'm going to follow the money. Because you know why? My parents going to have 3 kids in college at one time, and damn it, I'm not trying to be broke. My brother went to A&M, my sister went to A&M, and I went to A&M. All 3 have graduated, all 3 are doing well, and guess what? We ain't got no damn student loan debt because it's all been paid off. But the point I'm making is that's the black experience. HBCUs, the black experience. Community college, the black experience. Growing up in South Central or Watts or Compton or Harlem or Lithonia or Prince George's County, that's all the black experience. But we're the only ones who are playing this stupid game where who can be blacker than the other person, as opposed to what's the work we're focused on. That's why I did the commentary. That's what offended me the most. Because guess what? I would rather somebody who's biracial or somebody like Nessa who ain't even black, who give a damn about our issues, than a whole bunch of black folks who will turn their back and don't care and say it's all about me, myself, and I, as opposed to the issues at hand. Watch what you say around your children. Watch what you do around your children. Because if we are putting the wrong things in their heads, they're going to carry that stuff forth and repeat those things in school, repeat those things at church, repeat those things to their friends, and we have another generation of black folks who are questioning the blackness of somebody else. All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Life Luxe Jazz is the experience of a lifetime, delivering top-notch music in an upscale destination. The week-long event is held at the Omnia Day Club Los Cabos, which is nestled on the Sea of Cortez in the celebrity playground of Los Cabos, Mexico. This is also a black experience. The Life Luxe Jazz experience offers the ultimate getaway for discerning jazz aficionados by pairing an upscale international destination with luxury accommodations, fine hot cuisine, top-shelf libations, meaning liquor, breathtaking golf, exhilarating spa, health, and wellness options, and much more, while showcasing some of the biggest names in entertainment. The second annual Life Luxe Jazz experience continues to build upon its success and heritage with Jazzing Around Los Cabos, a celebratory expansion of accomplishing its goal of sharing all the finest the destination has to offer, including daytime excursions and many concerts, including the Spirit of Jazz Gospel Brunch and Jazz Sunset Cruise. Confirmed guests, comedian actor Mark Curry, Gerald Albright, Alex Bouillon, Raul Madon, Incognito, Pieces of a Dream, Kirk Whalum, Average White Band, Donnie McClurkin, Shalea, Roy Ayers, Tom Brown, Ronnie Laws, and Ernest Quarles. Folks, I'll be broadcasting Roland Martin Unfiltered from Los Cabos those 2 days. Go to lifeluxejazz.com, lifeluxejazz.com for more information. Would love to see y'all there. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video. All right, folks, Byron Allen, the CEO of Entertainment Studios suing Comcast and Charter Communications for $20 billion over racial discrimination. He claims that the companies wouldn't carry his networks or even meet with him because Entertainment Studio is a 100% minority-owned company. He also says the networks are in violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which prohibits racial discrimination in contracting. The Supreme Court has agreed to hear the case on November 13th, and if Allen wins, it would be a major victory for black-owned companies and black media as well. Now, what's quite interesting about this is that this week, the Trump Department of Justice actually filed a brief siding with Comcast in this whole deal. So according to this brief that they actually put out, the Department of Justice, they are arguing that Byron Allen needs to prove that race is the specific reason as to why he has been denied an opportunity to actually have his networks on Comcast. He has blasted the DOJ, blasted their interference as well. He said this is about enslavement. Pretty interesting. Let's talk about this, of course, with our panel. We got a couple of lawyers on the panel. First off, joining me to my right, Puerto Rico's Driscoll, adjunct professor at the George Washington University. Also joining us, Monique Presley, legal analyst and crisis manager. We have, of course, Dr. Jason Nichols, African American Studies, University of Maryland, and of course, and also joining us right now is Byron Jones, who's an attorney here in Washington, D.C. I'm gonna go to Monique. Ryan Jones. My apologies. Monique, I want to go to you first. So, first of all, a lot of people were shocked when Byron Allen said, Civil Rights Act of 1866. People were like, okay, first of all, I didn't realize that was Civil Rights Act of 1866. But it was very interesting, and people initially laughed at him. The fact that the Supreme Court is going to hear this case has shocked a lot of people, that it's made its way through the federal court system all the way to the Supreme Court, and they don't take a lot of cases.
Right. Right, but you know what, he's lived his whole career that way. He backs up whatever he's going to do with action. It's not a lot of talk. A lot of people have no idea even of how successful he is. Of course, you people like us know that, being in the industry, but I applaud what he did. I wish that more people who were in the entertainment business, who know good and well that, yes, he was discriminated against and his company was because of color. There was specific intent to do it for that purpose, and that it wasn't for any other pretextual reason that they're going to come up with. It's a shame that you don't get the support of the justice system right now because of all of the reasons that I'm sure we'll find a way to talk about it. But I think it's a good step that the Supreme Court recognizes this needs to be heard. I'm not confident about what they're going to do, but I think it's a good step that it's being heard.
Ryan, what's interesting about this, again, is the fact that he filed this in 2015. It's now 4 years. It's made its way all the way up. And so this is what the Trump Department of Justice said. They said that although the statute does not expressly describe the necessary causal link between a plaintiff's race and a defendant's refusal to contract, the text is most naturally read to require but-for causation, and background common law principles confirm that a but-for rule applies. Now, again, if you read the 1866 Civil Rights Act, which is quite interesting, again, something that was passed by huge margins, it was around one of the Reconstruction Acts, 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment as well. And it also established citizenship. And so it's really interesting, again, looking at this and reading it. And what do you make, though, of Byron Allen using this particular Civil Rights Act? He's not saying, oh, you guys just wouldn't meet with me. He's literally using a law that was passed in 1866 as the basis of his claim.
I think it's intelligent. What it does is it elevates the audience that's going to review, the court that's going to review this claim. You take it to the federal system. That's how you get to the Supreme Court. He didn't go state, he didn't go local. He wanted to go to a place where he's gonna have the biggest platform to speak his mind. And now it does call the conversation to us to say, hey, look, are we doing enough? How is it still possible for this to even be a conversation? Because you are a black-owned media entertainment company, that you can be excluded from Comcast and getting your messages out to the nationwide, black folks nationwide. And that's what Comcast is doing.
And here's what it says. All persons within the jurisdiction of the United States should have the same right in every state and territory to make and enforce contracts, to sue, be parties, give evidence, and to the full and equal benefit of all laws and proceedings for the security of persons and property as is enjoyed by white citizens, and shall be subject to like punishment, pains, penalties, taxes, licenses, and exactions of every kind, and to no other. Jason, again, reading that, what the law says is that, black folks are the same as white folks. I should have the same opportunities that they do, which is what Byron Allen is saying.
Absolutely. That's exactly what he's saying. I really, I can't see how, the Supreme Court and how the Trump administration would go against that, but nothing the Trump administration does surprises me at this point. I think we're going to, see, again, another example of how elections have consequences. And, we see how the judicial element of elections and the consequences that they bear, not only in this case, but in even more serious cases around the country. Not saying that this isn't serious, but in life and death cases.
Right, but what's unfortunate, Roland, is that I agree in part, disagree in part. I think under a prior iteration of our Supreme Court, we may not have gotten, or we're not likely to get a good result. That's why the fact that they're taking the time to look at this, and this isn't a case of first impression. We have the right to contract, and you're not supposed to be discriminated against in contracting. The reason it's so hard to prove is because people have the right to do business with whom they please. That's part of this free enterprise system. That's part of capitalism in the United States of America. So it's very hard. You can contrast it, same thing, to Colin Kaepernick's case against the NFL. Why isn't this person being hired? Is it because of race? Is it because of action? Is it because of protest? When you have to basically prove a negative, and that's what Allen's going to have to do here, show that every single other reason that they would claim is not true. And that's the only way that we get to the result where it is, and it's really the benefit, I guess, is that it's not a criminal case, because really the standard's still going to be more likely than not. It's not like beyond a reasonable doubt. So I think his case is strong. I just think that the court is reluctant to go into the waters of a person's ability to contract or a company's ability to contract.
Puerto Rico, what the DOJ says, in the making of a contract, he must establish that for the consideration of race, the defendant would have made the contract. Obviously, if you're Comcast, they're gonna say, look, we put TV One on our cable systems. Mm-hmm. We have launched these other minority-focused networks, Aspire, there were a Clio TV, also tied to TV One, and so it goes on and on and on, which was a part of the agreement when they bought Comcast. Excuse me, when they bought NBC Universal, and so that's one of the arguments they make. But the reality is, Captain Hughes had talked about this beforehand at Rainbow Push, when TV One launched, they had to cut a deal with Comcast and give them an equity stake to do it. And that's been the case. Right. So a lot of these black networks, where the distribution company said, okay, we'll put you on, but we gotta own. So you gotta give us an equity stake in your company in order for us to put you on our cable systems. And so what he is saying is, one, I'm not giving anybody any equity. Why can't you put me on these systems? And what we're talking about, first of all, there were several other companies, other cable companies that put his networks on. He's got a variety of networks, Comedy Network, a legal network, and several others. And we're talking about significant amounts of money, because there are cable networks out there who get 5-7 cents per subscriber, and they're making a profit because they get that money every single month based upon the number of subscribers.
I think what we are seeing, what we have seen again, is this done over again, right? We saw this. We certainly saw this during Reconstruction with the whole concept of 40 acres and a mule. We saw this during the 50s, I think the burgeoning of rock and roll with certain black artists coming onto the scene. The rock and roll companies, of course, would steal and say the same thing, that you have to give us a buy-in, or completely just give us shares of money where we could would turn over our copyrights, right? So we see this done over again, and I think what we're seeing now is someone who actually went through the legal process. I mean, we've seen others go through the legal process, but we're really seeing Byron take this through the legal process. And so I'm really interested in seeing what's the outcome, and not necessarily the ruling itself, but will others within the industry, media, as well as other minority businesses, take his example and go through the legal process to get what has been owed to them based off of discrimination.
Ryan, well, we're talking about if he is successful,
right.
Now all of a sudden, the doors also begin to open. Because the way this system currently is, they are in control. In fact, I can tell you right now, we're at TV One, it was interesting in how these deals even work. You could actually sign a master MSO, master agreement with a cable company that's national, but you still were required to go to each individual city and convince the local general manager of that cable affiliate to put you on their system. We had to get real guerrilla in Mississippi because the Washington Post owned a cable system in Mississippi, 70% black. And the general manager says, oh, no one here has requested TV One. And we're like, are you serious? So we had to take a campaign against them. I went on black radio there and said, all right, drop y'all cable, get DirecTV. Then all of a sudden they responded because we also were on DirecTV. But those are some of the tactics that we had to actually employ just to get. When BET launched, you had black preachers and others who had to bombard the cable system saying, put this network on this local cable system. And that's how a lot of the black cable networks had to operate in the last 40 years.
So I'm looking at what Byron Allen has done and what his lawyers have done in alleging the facts to make sure they have a claim that goes forward. Comcast tried to dismiss it. That's what you do. Someone files a complaint. Before you file an answer, you file a motion to dismiss. Their motion to dismiss was granted. Now it's gotten raised all the way to the Supreme Court whether or not Byron Allen alleged enough facts to move forward in this litigation. In this litigation, he's still going to have to go and do discovery and find out if Comcast used race to exclude him. Mm-hmm. The Department of Justice's position might be, we don't want it to get that far. We don't want you going all through the emails of Comcast because it might come out that there was some racism that excluded.
But are you surprised DOJ is filing a brief?
Surprised based on what we know about this administration. You would say you're not surprised, but you might understand that they're siding with Comcast and saying, yeah, let's just not let them go through this painstaking litigation that could come to say that they are. You'd have to say that they were racist.
Monique, are you surprised that? Are you surprised that? I mean, here's Byron Allen, Studio, Comcast, Cable Network, DOJ filing a brief.
Right, but we're looking at a civil rights claim, right? So it's appropriate for the Department of Justice and they're filing an amicus brief. So they're saying, we're not in this, but here's what we think about it.
We're not in it, but we're in it.
And that is appropriate, and there are many others who should do the same thing. The issue is that they're kind of bringing it down to some old, like, Dred Scott type analysis on why this is not racism, and that's the part that bothers me. And my counsel here is correct that he's going to have to start over at the beginning. But here's the other thing. When it's a civil suit, money fixes it. So he's not suing, and even if he wins, then they contract with him. They're never going to do business with him. The only thing that he can hope for is that they are crippled and exposed and shamed to the point that they are willing to work something out. Now, a settlement, sure, but courts rarely do specific performance. $20 billion is a lot of money, but it doesn't open a door for you or for me or for anybody else.
Well, some of the other smaller cable companies did buckle and put him on their systems. Jason, last point on this before I go to a break. I'm going to be interested in seeing, will civil rights organizations file briefs supporting Byron Allen over Comcast, who has financially supported many of these same civil rights organizations?
Right. I think that's going to be an interesting thing. I think this entire case is going to be interesting to see how it shakes out, how involved, you know, and again, I appreciate both the comments from the lawyers because I'm not a lawyer. So it was very interesting. It is going to be very interesting.
But you say the Holiday Inn Express, so you can go ahead and speak on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know what time it is.
Girls are allowed. I'm white. I got you.
Illegally selling water without a permit
On my property.
Whoa! Hey!
You don't live here. I'm uncomfortable.
Well, it's not Monique Galveston, Texas, but it is Dallas, Texas. Check out this white man at the post office, y'all.
Sir, really?
No, it's not, ma'am. I'm gonna get the cops here.
Really, this is not
It's
good.
not.
Doesn't matter.
Yes.
They're playing a fool. I'm legitimately outraged.
Well, you can be that way, but you don't.
I don't care.
Clearly, dude.
I don't care. Shut it.
Ma'am,
Wow.
it's okay. Ma'am, it's okay.
Give me the form, you fool.
Yeah, can you send?
Give me the form, you asshole. You fucking jigaboo. Give me the fucking form.
Oh.
Can you send the police right?
Yeah,
Can you send
right
police?
Give me the form, you fucking nigger.
Oh no, that's a.
Guys, hand plate, nigger.
Oh wow.
Now, I'm not quite sure if he has stuff on his belt. Don't know if he was carrying a gun. It's open to carry. Don't know there, but
I mean, what do you say to that? This is America.
Mental illness is real. Okay, that man was not just having a whiteness
I don't think that's
issue.
mental illness.
no, that
Really?
wasn't.
Oh, you think that was a sane person who, because of their whiteness, was
Yes.
doing
Yeah,
all of that?
yeah, that's what it was.
Yes,
Okay.
that's exactly what it was.
Just like the white man
Right,
in
that's exactly
Ohio.
what it was.
Just like the white man in Ohio
He knows that's wrong to say. You don't call somebody a jigaboo. That's a specific
I
context
can't
of the
with y'all
term.
because
No.
if I was sitting on
Absolutely.
Tucker
Hold up,
Carlson
Monet.
and he
Hold
was
up,
doing
Monet.
crazy ass
Monet,
black
remember?
people,
You remember the white man in Ohio who had I think he was an electrician.
Yes.
And remember, he followed the black person home, and he was giving them the finger and calling them the N-word. And then a week later, I done lost my business. I done lost everything.
I mean,
sorry.
jigaboo, nigger, coon, you know those are offensive terms to people of color, particularly black people.
Hey.
That's not mental illness. Now, he might have had a mental illness. Granted.
How is it not mental illness to
He
say
might have
out
had
loud
one.
what
Hold
you
up.
know better
Guess-
than
I guess
You are
yes.
specifically targeting a group of people, a person rather, and that brother, I think, was African because he had an accent, right? So,
He wasn't even a regular black person.
I did not say that. Certainly,
See,
I did
there
not
we
say
go.
that.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Life Luxe Jazz is the experience of a lifetime, delivering top-notch music in an upscale destination. The week-long event is held at the Omnia Day Club Los Cabos, which is nestled on the Sea of Cortez in the celebrity playground of Los Cabos, Mexico. This is also a black experience. The Life Luxe Jazz experience offers the ultimate getaway for discerning jazz aficionados by pairing an upscale international destination with luxury accommodations, fine haute cuisine, top-shelf libations, meaning liquor, breathtaking golf, exhilarating spa, health and wellness options, and much more, while showcasing some of the biggest names in entertainment. The second annual Life Luxe Jazz experience continues to build upon its success and heritage with Jazzing Around Los Cabos, a celebratory expansion of accomplishing its goal of sharing all the finest the destination has to offer, including daytime excursions and many concerts, including the Spirit of Jazz Gospel Brunch and Jazz Sunset Cruise. Confirmed guests, comedian actor Mark Curry, Gerald Albright, Alex Bouillon, Raul Madon, Incognito, Pieces of a Dream, Kirk Whalum, Average White Band, Donnie McClurkin, Shalea, Roy Ayers, Tom Brown, Ronnie Laws, and Ernest Quarles. Folks, I'll be broadcasting Roland Martin Unfiltered from Los Cabos those 2 days. Go to lifeluxejazz.com, lifeluxejazz.com for more information. Would love to see y'all there. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video. /Roland S. Martin, and don't forget to turn on your notifications. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it.
Hey everybody, this is your man Fred Hammond, and you're watching Roland Martin, my man, Unfiltered.
Hi, this is Essence Atkins, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hey, yo, Peace World, what's going on? It's the Love King of R&B, Raheem Devon, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hi, my name is Brescia Webb, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Ow. Well, I like a nice filter usually, but we can be unfiltered.
What's going on? This is Tobias Trevelyan. And if you're ready, you are listening to and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
What's up? I'm Lance Gross, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hi, this is Cheryl Lee Ralph, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, could it be any other way? Really? It's Roland Martin.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? The blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play.